After years practicing medicine and studying what actually drives long-term health and longevity, I have come to a conclusion that might surprise you. Most of the power in your diet comes from 15 foods or fewer. Not superfoods, not exotic supplements, not anything complicated or expensive. Boring, recognizable, single-ingredient foods that you could find in any supermarket, eaten consistently, week after week, year after year. I'm going to walk you through the 15 foods that I personally eat every week, not because I am trying to be a certain way, but because the evidence for each of them is compelling enough that I would feel I was doing myself a disservice by not eating them. For each one, I'll tell you exactly what it does in your body and why it matters for how long you live and how well you function as you age. I'll also mention at the end the one common everyday food that quietly undermines most people's health without them ever realizing it. My name is Dr. Victor Hayes. Let's begin. Before we get to food, I have to start with water, because most people are chronically, mildly dehydrated and genuinely don't know it. Your thirst mechanism is not reliable. By the time you feel thirsty, you are already dehydrated. And that lag worsens significantly with age. Many adults in their 40s and 50s are walking around in a persistent state of mild dehydration that they have come to accept as normal tiredness or foggy thinking. Here is what mild dehydration actually does. Your blood becomes more viscous, making your heart work harder. Your kidney filtration rate declines. Your brain function, concentration, memory, mood, all measurably worsen. Even your joints and muscles function less effectively. Dehydration forces your kidneys to work harder to concentrate urine and maintain electrolyte balance. Over time, that chronic extra strain contributes to gradual kidney function decline. And unlike many other organs, lost kidney function is not recovered. My approach? Whenever I enter the kitchen, I drink a glass of water. Not because I am thirsty, as a habit, tied to a location. Consistent hydration throughout the day, not a burst of water before bed. This is unglamorous. It is not trending on social media, but over decades, it is one of the most protective things you can do for your kidneys, your cardiovascular system, and your cognitive function. Food 14, dark chocolate, at least 70% cocoa content. I know what you are thinking, but the science here is genuine. High-quality dark chocolate is one of the richest sources of polyphenols available in food, specifically flavonoids. When absorbed, these flavonoids trigger the production of nitric oxide in the lining of your blood vessels. Nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that tells your blood vessels to relax and expand. This improves blood flow, reduces blood pressure, and maintains vascular flexibility. That flexibility, the ability of your arteries to respond appropriately to changing demands, is one of the key markers of cardiovascular health as we age. Stiff, inflexible arteries lead to hypertension, which leads to heart attacks and strokes. 10 to 20 grams per day is sufficient to access these benefits without meaningfully affecting calorie intake. The critical variable is cocoa content. If it tastes sweet rather than bitter, the polyphenol concentration is insufficient. Food 13. Eggs. I eat these in some form almost every day. Eggs had a complicated reputation for decades because of concerns about dietary cholesterol. The science has moved well beyond that. We now understand that for most people, dietary cholesterol has minimal impact on blood cholesterol levels. The liver regulates cholesterol production in response to dietary intake, and the real drivers of harmful blood cholesterol are excess saturated fats, trans fats, and chronic systemic inflammation. What eggs actually deliver is exceptional. They are a complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids, making them highly efficient for muscle maintenance and repair, which becomes increasingly important after the age of 35. Eggs are also one of the best dietary sources of choline, a nutrient critical for brain health, neurotransmitter function, and cell membrane integrity. Most people are chronically low in choline, and cognitive decline is something you want to prevent decades before symptoms appear, not try to reverse after they do. From a metabolic perspective, eggs are highly satiating. They stabilize blood sugar and significantly reduce the likelihood of energy crashes and cravings later in the day. Food 12. Cottage cheese. I typically eat this on seeded sourdough, sometimes with smoked salmon or seeds. Cottage cheese is approximately 80% protein by calorie, which is rare for something easy to eat in meaningful quantities. When you pair protein with carbohydrates, you slow the rate at which glucose enters your bloodstream dramatically. Toast eaten alone causes a rapid glucose spike. The same toast eaten with cottage cheese produces a substantially smaller, slower rise, because the protein slows gastric emptying and blunts absorption. Lower glucose spikes mean lower insulin spikes. Lower insulin spikes consistently over time mean better insulin sensitivity and meaningfully lower risk of metabolic disease. Cottage cheese is also a fermented dairy product. It contains beneficial bacteria that support gut microbiome diversity. The fermentation process partially breaks down lactose, making it better tolerated by people who struggle with regular dairy. From a longevity perspective, high protein intake is strongly associated with preserved muscle mass as we age, which is one of the most reliable predictors of functional independence and quality of life in later years. Food 11. Walnuts and pecans. Nuts are calorie-dense, but they have an exceptionally high satiety effect. The combination of fat, fiber, and protein slows digestion, prevents blood sugar crashes, and keeps you full for hours. Walnuts are one of the richest plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically alpha-linolenic acid. Regular nut consumption consistently improves lipid profiles, raising HDL, lowering LDL, and reducing triglycerides. That is a meaningful cardiovascular risk reduction from a handful of nuts most days. What is particularly compelling about nuts is the consistency of the longevity data. Large prospective studies repeatedly show that people who eat nuts regularly have lower risk of all-cause mortality, not just cardiovascular death. That breadth of benefit suggests nuts are doing something protective across multiple systems simultaneously. The fiber feeds the gut microbiome, the fats reduce inflammation, and the micronutrients, magnesium, vitamin E, selenium, fill gaps that most Western diets leave. A small handful, about 30 grams, daily or most days. Food 10. Pumpkin and sunflower seeds. I add these to almost everything. Salads, soups, eggs, yogurt. A habit that costs almost nothing and requires no preparation. Seeds are among the most nutrient-dense additions to a diet available, and they are systematically overlooked. Pumpkin seeds are exceptionally high in magnesium, a mineral involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, including energy production, blood pressure regulation, and muscle function. The majority of people eating a Western diet are deficient in magnesium. Sunflower seeds provide vitamin E, selenium, and healthy fats. Both seed types contain meaningful fiber, which feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut and produces short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation and improve insulin sensitivity. The practical point: seeds go on everything. You do not need to cook them, prepare them, or change any meal structure. Just add them. The compounding effect of that micronutrient input over months and years is genuinely significant. Food 9. Beetroot. Roasted, raw in salads, or as a simple side. The key compound in beetroot is dietary nitrate, present in extraordinarily high concentrations. Nitrate is converted to nitric oxide through a process involving bacteria in your mouth and digestive system. Nitric oxide is the same molecule I mentioned with dark chocolate, the signaling compound that keeps blood vessels flexible and responsive. The difference with beetroot is scale. The nitrate concentration is high enough that controlled trials have shown measurable reductions in systolic blood pressure from regular beetroot consumption. At a population level, even modest blood pressure reductions prevent enormous numbers of cardiovascular events. Beyond cardiovascular effects, evidence suggests beetroot nitrates improve mitochondrial efficiency, how your cells produce energy. Better mitochondrial function means better physical performance, faster recovery, and potentially slower cellular aging. Beetroot is also low in calories, high in fiber, and rich in betalains, antioxidant and anti-inflammatory pigments that reduce oxidative stress. Food 8. Kefir. A fermented dairy drink I typically have in the morning, sometimes mixed with berries or seeds. Kefir is made using a combination of bacteria and yeast that produces a significantly more diverse range of probiotic strains than regular yogurt. When consumed regularly, these beneficial microorganisms support the balance and diversity of your gut microbiome. A healthy, diverse microbiome is now understood to be connected to immune function, metabolic health, mental health through the gut-brain axis, and the regulation of systemic inflammation. The fermentation process also breaks down lactose, making kefir well tolerated by many people who cannot comfortably consume regular dairy. A Stanford study found that regular fermented food consumption over 10 weeks consistently increased microbiome diversity and reduced inflammatory markers in participants. Given that chronic low-grade inflammation is a shared mechanism in virtually every major chronic disease, that finding carries real clinical weight. Beyond the probiotic benefits, kefir is high in protein, calcium, and B vitamins, supporting muscle maintenance, bone health, and energy metabolism. Food 7. Kale. It has become something of a health cliché, but the reason it keeps appearing is that the evidence genuinely supports it. Kale is exceptional for 3 specific reasons. First, its polyphenol content, plant compounds with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties consistently linked to lower rates of chronic disease. Second, its vitamin K content, essential for bone health and proper blood clotting and widely insufficient in most people's diets. Third, its nitrate content, which, like beetroot, supports nitric oxide production and vascular flexibility. Research consistently shows that people who eat more leafy greens have slower rates of cognitive decline, better cardiovascular outcomes, and lower all-cause mortality. The practical note: it does not need to be elaborate. A bag of sliced kale, olive oil, and salt in an oven for 10 minutes produces something genuinely enjoyable. The goal is eating it consistently, not preparing it beautifully. Food 6. Salmon. I eat this approximately twice per week. Smoked salmon with eggs, or fillets for dinner. Salmon is one of the best dietary sources of EPA and DHA, the long-chain omega-3 fatty acids your body can use directly, without needing to convert them from plant sources first. These omega-3s have a measurable anti-inflammatory effect at the cellular level. They are incorporated into the membranes of your cells, including heart and brain cells, changing how those cells function, reducing inflammatory signaling, and improving insulin sensitivity. Strong evidence from controlled trials shows that omega-3 consumption reduces risk of cardiovascular events. The brain protection argument for salmon is particularly compelling from a longevity perspective. DHA constitutes a significant proportion of the fat in your brain. Higher omega-3 intake is associated with better cognitive function and slower rates of cognitive decline. Maintaining executive function, processing speed, and clear thinking into your 70s and 80s is not incidental. It determines quality of life. Salmon is one of the most efficient ways to support that. Food 5. Blueberries. I eat these paired with yogurt and seeds, and the pairing is intentional. Blueberries contain one of the highest concentrations of polyphenols, specifically anthocyanins, which give them their deep blue color, of any commonly available fruit. These anthocyanins have powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties and have been shown to cross the blood-brain barrier, meaning they can directly influence brain function. Eating blueberries alone without pairing them with protein or fat can produce a glucose spike from their natural sugars. The yogurt and seeds slow glucose absorption, flattening the blood sugar curve, extending the feeling of fullness, and ensuring you access the nutritional benefits without the metabolic cost of a rapid sugar hit. Long-term data consistently shows that people who eat berries regularly have better cognitive outcomes as they age, with slower rates of decline associated with conditions like Alzheimer's. The mechanisms involve reduced oxidative stress and inflammation in the brain. Food 4. Black coffee, consumed approximately 60 to 90 minutes after waking, not immediately upon rising. The timing matters. Cortisol peaks in the first hour after waking as part of your natural alertness mechanism. Drinking coffee during that cortisol peak stacks caffeine on top of an already active alert signal, leading to faster tolerance buildup, more jitteriness, and a sharper crash when both cortisol and caffeine fall together. Waiting allows cortisol to peak and begin declining naturally. Caffeine then fills the gap in alertness more efficiently with a cleaner and more sustained effect. The health evidence for moderate coffee consumption is among the most consistent in nutritional epidemiology. 2 to 3 cups per day is associated with a lower risk of all-cause mortality, meaning not just cardiovascular death, but death from all causes. Coffee's polyphenols have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, and there is specific strong evidence linking coffee consumption to better liver health and reduced risk of liver disease. Black or near black, the benefits are documented for unsweetened coffee. If it tastes like a dessert, you are no longer drinking a health-supporting beverage. Food 3. Mushrooms. I fry these lightly in olive oil as a side dish or on toast. Mushrooms are nutritionally dense for remarkably few calories. High in fiber, B vitamins, selenium, and potassium, they also contain beta-glucans, polysaccharides with immune-modulating properties. Beta-glucans train your immune system to respond more effectively to threats without triggering overactivation, which matters because an overactive immune system is what leads to chronic inflammation and autoimmune conditions. Mushrooms are also one of the very few non-animal dietary sources of vitamin D, particularly when they have been exposed to sunlight or UV light during growing. Vitamin D deficiency is extremely common and linked to immune function, bone health, mood regulation, and cardiovascular risk. The combination of immune support, micronutrient density, and negligible calorie load makes mushrooms one of the most efficient additions to a longevity-focused diet. Food 2. Sauerkraut. Fermented cabbage that I eat as a side with main meals or on its own. Sauerkraut delivers multiple benefits simultaneously. The fermentation process increases the bioavailability of nutrients in the cabbage. Your body absorbs more from fermented cabbage than from raw or cooked cabbage. It also produces a diverse range of probiotic bacteria that support gut microbiome diversity. Unlike expensive probiotic supplements, the beneficial bacteria in sauerkraut come embedded in a fiber matrix that also feeds your gut microbiome. Fiber from the cabbage produces short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation, improve insulin sensitivity, and support metabolic health. Sauerkraut is also high in vitamin C, essential for immune function, collagen production, and antioxidant protection, and the fermentation process preserves this vitamin content effectively. The longevity argument for sauerkraut is really about gut health and inflammation management. A diverse, well-nourished gut microbiome is one of the strongest predictors of healthy aging. Fermented foods are the most effective way to support that diversity, and sauerkraut costs almost nothing. Food 1. Extra virgin olive oil. I use this every day, generously, on everything. On vegetables, on eggs, on toast instead of butter, in any cooking I do. Olive oil is the most studied single food in the context of longevity. It is a central component of the Mediterranean diet, which consistently shows the lowest rates of cardiovascular disease, dementia, and all-cause mortality across the populations that follow it. What makes extra virgin olive oil specifically valuable, as opposed to refined olive oil, is the polyphenol content. That slight bitterness and peppery quality in high-quality olive oil is the polyphenols. These compounds protect the endothelium, the inner lining of your blood vessels. Endothelial dysfunction is one of the earliest detectable signs of cardiovascular disease, appearing years before any symptom or clinical diagnosis. Olive oil protects endothelial function, improves lipid profiles, raises HDL cholesterol, and reduces oxidative stress. Large prospective studies consistently show that higher olive oil consumption predicts lower cardiovascular event rates, lower rates of neurodegenerative disease, and lower overall mortality. Use it generously. Use it daily. Use the extra virgin version, because refined olive oil loses its polyphenols in processing and delivers almost none of these benefits. I promise to mention one food that quietly undermines more people's health than almost any other, without them realizing it. soft white sliced bread. Not because one slice causes any harm. The problem is that most people eat it twice daily. Toast for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, making it one of the single largest contributors to daily calorie intake. White bread is ultra-processed. It is extremely low in fiber. It has a very high glycemic load. It causes rapid blood glucose spikes, triggers an insulin surge, and then a crash an hour later that drives hunger and cravings. Done twice daily every day for years, this pattern is a primary driver of insulin resistance and progressive metabolic dysfunction. The deeper problem is what white bread displaces. When it fills your breakfast and lunch, you are not eating eggs, vegetables, nuts, seeds, kefir, or any of the 15 foods I've just described. Seeded sourdough with protein and fat is an entirely different story. It has fiber, it has structure, it digests slowly. The problem is not bread. The problem is ultra-processed white bread as a dietary staple eaten at volume every day for decades. Longevity is not about finding a magic superfood or optimizing some obscure supplement protocol. It is about boring, repeatable, single-ingredient foods eaten consistently over years and decades that protect your cardiovascular system, feed your gut microbiome, maintain your insulin sensitivity, support your muscle mass, and reduce the systemic inflammation that drives virtually every major chronic disease. The 15 foods I've described today are not expensive. They are not difficult to find. They require no special preparation. They are just consistently excellent choices that compound into better health over time. If this was useful, please subscribe to this channel and leave a comment below telling me which of these you are going to add to your weekly routine. I read every comment. I'll see you in the next video.